So what let's do next is we just talked about a statement. Say we sent this out to him and he's going to pay us. So we said the amount due was $950.99. Okay. So let's say that time has passed and all of a sudden we get a check in the mail. Okay. How are we going to pay this thing off? Okay, so I could go to a couple places. I could either go right to the AR waiting room, or I could go right to the customer, to that particular person, and say apply payments. Which way would you like to see it? We could do it either way.
Customer.
Okay, we're going to go customer waiting room, and we got some money from Fred. So we're going to scroll down until we find Fred Flintstone here, okay? I'm going to come across until I see the little thing that says apply payments. Okay, so just so you can see what the little links are, log takes me to the main homepage for Fred, okay? Apply payments is let's get some money from this guy. Payment history, what has he paid me? And statements actually helps you take you directly over, right to statements for Fred from there, okay? The AR waiting room is great. It really helps you do that stuff. So we're going to apply payments to Fred. Okay, so basically we're on a little page right here, and just to kind of orient you to the page, it says apply payments to invoices. We already know that we are on Fred. He totally owes us a certain amount, and then depending on what he pays us, we will start applying it to this type of deal. Okay?
Oh, so you apply it.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't automatically apply.
Well, it depends. It depends. If I wanted to, there is a little thing right here that says divide payments. This little guy. Just for fun, we're just playing with some numbers. How much is Fred going to pay off on this bill?
500.
500. So what you do, this is where you always start. You start right here and you chime in what your number is, okay? So out of the 991, he's going to pay me 500. Now if I click this little thing, what it does is it automatically goes to the oldest and starts filling it basically like satisfied, satisfied, satisfied. Oh, I only got partial on this one. So watch what happens right here. As soon as I click this, click, full, partial. Okay? So basically it helps you to start satisfying these pieces. And then you would basically go through the rest. I'm assuming he probably sent a check. What was the check number?
1,000.
Great. Good old Fred. Okay, if you wanted to, you could put anything else there, and then you can actually put the date. Now this date is actually what's going to physically be stamped onto those invoices. Okay? So at this point, watch this. As soon as I say apply payments, it's going to start going through and be like, okay, hey, I successfully applied 5 payments. Would you like to see all of these little things, etc., etc.? Or would you like to apply more payments for the same customer? Watch this. If I click on this, just so you can see what happened, we will no longer owe as much. Okay? We now owe $490, and it automatically satisfied those other pieces. Okay? If you're like, oh, man, where did those go? I need to find those. Do you ever have that question? Oh, where did that go? I needed to find it. Well, what happens is because it has a date on it, inside of Adilas, everything is date specific. So guess what? I can now search it. Okay? So here's what I would do. If it was me, I would actually go like this. Home, come down to the bottom, either hit on History and Reports or Today. Okay? Today. And basically, it's basically going to come in here as all invoice payments. I have 5 for $500. So I'm going to click on it. And the reason I have 5 is I may have already created an invoice that didn't have a... okay, so basically here's what we did. It kind of just, here's the pieces, here's the invoices that it ended up satisfying, and you're basically able to get to it. But your history report is incredibly important, okay? Everything happens within a date. Remember how I showed you that brick wall and I said, okay, what brick does this happen in, or does it span certain things? If you can start thinking of that, all you're doing is you're categorizing data into time slots, okay? This happens to be into a date. And it'll show, hey, from the invoice to the payment age, these are old. You don't ever want to have receivables out that old because you're not going to collect your money. But basically, I'm just trying to show you that it does show you that. So let's head back to Fred for just a quick second.
The today you clicked on, that was below your map, correct?
Oh, yeah. So here's how you can do this. Once you know what you have, It's called the inventory homepage. Sorry, history homepage, okay? These are quick links to it. What happened, your date, what's done this, what's done this. If I click on this, this is the exact same thing. The only difference is I now have to control it. Hey, am I looking for historical, effectual? This is still coming. It's called the financial history. It'll be awesome. Basically, it'll say like, hey, what hit your income statement? What hit your cost of goods? What hit your, like, it's virtually your, we already have those pieces, but it hasn't fully been mapped, if you will, like in a report format. So this is currently just doing a daily thing. What if we actually said, hey, let's change it for the month of March? And I said, get the report. Just to kind of show you that it's going to be different here. Currently, it's just saying, hey, here's some small things that we've done. So we did 3 elements of time. One of them had an end date. One of them had a target due date. That was for today. I'm going to just change it to the month. It was on daily. It's currently on daily, 3/26. I'm going to hit Get Report for the month. So for the month, so this is for the whole month of March. Elements of time, I have 7 instead of 3 now. I now have a whole bunch of other little pieces of the puzzle. I have invoices, 1 counter sale, a whole bunch of this. Here's some of the taxes that I've collected for that particular portion. The client queue, looks like I actually was even playing in the client queue. This little report will show you tons and tons of detail. If you wanted to, you could even tweak it out even further. This is just a play site, but just for fun, why don't we go back to 1/1 of 10 to 3/31 of 13. And I say, go get it. All of a sudden, it's going to pull me back a bunch of stuff. Hey, I've got 106 elements of time, a bunch of them that have end dates, a bunch of them that have finish dates, a bunch of target dates. Here's a bunch of subs of time. So the way that this is organized is main item, sub-item, count, and value if it matters. So here's some deposits. Looks like I've actually done 3 deposits. Woo! But anyway, this is just a play site. So invoices, I've done 78 invoices worth $20,000. And at any point in time, you can click on any of these different little pieces, and you could actually go directly into what they mean. So here's some PO scans, and here's some invoice scans. We'll just see what we have for invoice scans. Oh, how funny. Some older ones. This is my dad and me. This is funny, but you'll get a kick out of it. That's me and that's my dad in our classic retro bathrobes. So anyway, this is a play site, but technically those would actually be like if you needed real life documentation, or if you wanted to, somebody sent you a check in the mail and you wanted to scan it and attach it to that, you could technically say, hey, here's really where I got the payment for that, if that makes sense. This history homepage is huge. It's huge, huge, huge. But it plays a portion of customers. And as far as also like, is there new customers? Is there scans? Is there queues? Is there records? Is there logs? Like all of these different things. Anything you put in there, we automatically track that date. It's very, very important that you know that, and then it really helps you. So we took a little sidetrack. Let's go back to where we were. We were talking about customers, and we took a little sidetrack to say, let's apply some payments, okay? Any questions on that right now? We talked roughly about a statement, and so you saw that when I actually applied those payments, I didn't even reference a statement number. The statement literally is a snapshot in time. Send it out the door, and that tells them what they need to pay on. That has no validity, if that makes sense, like as far as like inside the system. It literally is a snapshot. What do you owe me? Oh, you owe me this. Here's your statement. Okay? When I get it, I end up satisfying the individual invoices that were on that statement. Okay? That's just an important way to know what's going on there. Okay, let's talk about one other little piece that's kind of important under customers, which is called logs. What would a log be on a customer?
Probably everything that's ever happened with Fred.
Perfect, perfect, exactly. So right now I just clicked on it. I don't have anything. Let's go ahead and bring up Fred again. So I'm going to go just part of his last name, STO. Let's see what I got. Oh, I got a few different things that came up under STO. I'm going to click on Fred, and we're going to go to log. So his logs are right here. His phone number is 555. He still doesn't have a phone. Fred doesn't, like, okay, this is just making fun of some stuff, but it's very easy to add a log. You just click on add a new log. So this is basically building another one-to-many. So the customer is going to start holding this information. This is what happens. So some people who do a lot of calling or different things are happening, they will log everything. What happened, who's in, who's out, who touched base, did we try to collect on this credit card, whatever it might be. Okay? So basically here's the add edit customer log page. We already know that we're in Fred. We're in the add mode, so it's in new. And I basically select what the contact type was. So what are we recording here? Cheryl?
We're recording a phone call.
Okay, great. So we just go down to phone. And is there a certain date we can do the time? When did he call?
He called at 9 o'clock this morning.
Perfect. 9. And what are we recording?
He's telling us that he's going to pay the balance in 30 days of his account.
He said he would pay the balance in 30 days. Okay, so this is important, not that it really matters a whole lot, but it is HTML compatible and it is unlimited. So if you have an email that you got from him and you're like, hey, I'm just going to copy a couple paragraphs of this email or whatever, you could technically copy, paste, and all of a sudden it's now recorded in Fred's log. Okay, so ours is very, very simple. He said he would pay the balance in 30 days. Now, usually I skip this portion, but you don't have to. If you have a follow-up, you could technically create another date saying, hey, I need some help. Okay, and all you have to do is if you look right here, if you say, yes, I would like to do this, it basically opens these fields up. If you say no, it locks them down. Okay, and so depending on if you need it or not, it's not required, but it is another option. So if you called somebody and you're like, give me a call in 2 weeks. Okay, I'm going to do it. What you're doing is you're technically creating a new date that's now going to show up in history.
Will it also show up in your calendar on time?
Okay, it does not. And so what we're going to do there is it would show up on your history report. The calendar is just for the calendar, but where we're headed with that is actually doing a calendar overlay and like what kind of data do you want? Because right now if we were to put everything inside the system that is date specific on the calendar, you wouldn't even be able to tell what date it is because like literally we're packing tons and tons of stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a thing where you're like, what dates would you like to see on the calendar format? Or you just learn how to search them, but basically it's called a calendar overlay. Okay, I'm going to say no follow-up is needed and add the log entry. So now if I scroll down here under Fred, boom, here's a brand new log entry. It has its own little ID number. And then it basically kind of comes and says, hey, he'll pay the balance in 30 days. And so as soon as, if I were back home at my home page and I actually clicked on logs, what were the last couple of logs that happened in the last 30 days? Oh, Fred, he said he would pay the balance in 30 days. It automatically starts showing up underneath there. And if you wanted to, you could actually be like, hey, I need to tweak this range out, or I'm looking for just things that have this. As soon as you learn how to search and use Adilas for some of its capabilities, you can search tons. Like watch this. So here is the note. If I type in the word BAL, like for balance or whatever, boom, it would just grab that BAL that was right in there. Okay. If I open this up, I have a bunch of logs in here. Let's actually do this. Why don't we open this date range up way far so I can get a bunch more. And I imagine I've probably used the word test a few times because this is one of my little testing sites, just to kind of show you the flexibility of it. Okay, I got one log that actually had the word test in it. But normally, depending on which word you're looking for, it would be kind of fun. He doesn't have it for too long ago. Okay, somebody was having fun, and it probably actually grabbed. So if it says more, if you click on it, it basically takes you to the log, and then you can read more. It basically only shows a certain number of characters in case you really wanted to stretch it out. Okay, we have kind of roughly covered customers. There's one other small piece that I want to cover under customers, and then we will move on, okay? So I'm going to go to customers, and there's this thing called Manage Customer Types. If I click on this, this is where you actually get to categorize your customers. It's very simple. It's a simple add form. To add a new one, I would basically just type something in here, and then I could do it. If you're not categorizing your customers, you may never need this, but lots of times people will have members and non-members, VIP, this, or they might even be like, hey, these are my retail people, these are my wholesale people, these are my whatever. It's a way to categorize your customers. If you want to, you can add, edit, fairly self-explanatory, but you get to that from the customer homepage and then manage customer types. That's how you do that. Any other questions as far as customers? We've kind of covered customers briefly. Any questions there? So just really quick, let's give me a challenge and we'll see if I can do it, okay? So think of a customer scenario that you would have. Either they're buying something, or we're going to attach them to time, or we're just going to log something, or whatever. And we're not going to use Fred. We're going to see this is going to be a fictitious customer, okay? The customer's name is actually going to be Mikkel Moore, okay? So Cheryl, why don't you tell me a scenario and we're going to just run through it. So basically what I want to do here is we know that we have these containers that we can now do some stuff with customers. Let's pretend that Mikkel is our customer. What does she do and how do we want to log it? And we'll go from there.
She is going to rent a car.
Okay, great. And we are a rental business?
We're a rental business. We're going to rent her a car.
Okay, perfect. So the first thing that I'm going to probably do is I'm actually probably going to say, let's create an element of time, right?
Okay.
And I probably don't have one that has rental, but what I will do is I will just use an all or a client schedule. So basically I want to set one up specifically that had it. I'm going to call it customer time clock, okay?
Okay.
Just for a second. And I would come in here and what's the car kind?
A Mitsubishi.
MIT something.
Why don't we go with Ford?
Boy, you spell it out like I do. That's great. Okay, so from when to when are we doing this?
We're going to rent it for the month for her. So we
For
started
the whole month. Okay.
So we started at the first of the month and
3/1, and any specific time she came in?
9 o'clock in the morning. She's an early riser.
Okay, 9 a.m. And she's just going to the end of the month?
Right, she's just going to the end of the month.
Perfect. So I would click this option. Does that make sense? Why?
Mm-hmm.
This basically, I know when it is. So basically now I do the date, 3/31, and then what time has she got to bring it back in to me?
By 9 o'clock in the
By
morning.
9 a.m. again. Okay, great. By 9 a.m. Okay, I'm going to let it auto-calculate that time. That's no problem. And do I have a specific fee that I'm charging for this whole month? Do I know
We're
this?
charging $500.
$500. Great. This is perfect. So I probably need to invoice this. Here's some of my options. Blank. It has been invoiced. It needs to be invoiced. Don't charge it. Other or quoted. Okay. I'm just going to say needs to be invoiced. What it does is it creates a little flag. Hey, this one has some teeth or it needs some help. I don't know the invoice number yet. I'm going to actually do that. And we'll just actually call this one in progress right now. And once again, you would actually set this template up so it had exactly the pieces you want. I'm just kind of rolling through this as if it was kind of fictitious. And we're going to actually say, hey, let's see if we have anybody by the last name of Moore in here. Okay, so I put it under help me do a search under the customer. And then if we wanted any specific notes, we could put it in here, okay? Maybe I could put her license number. Whatever, okay? Just for Mikkel. And I say add the element of time. So technically, watch where it bounced to me really quick, okay? Customer contact search results. But this little piece right here is kind of interesting. Currently working with element of time 107, okay? So if I wanted to, I could technically go right to it, or I'm already in the middle of searching, but I don't see her here, okay? So I'm going to go like this, add new customer. Click. And I'm going to say she is a normal one, mostly. I'm just teasing. So you'll notice that I actually skipped the business name. She doesn't have a business name, okay? Here's how this works. You either do this or you do this and this, if that makes sense. So Usually you don't do both. Like if I have a business, say I was actually doing this to XYZ chiropractor school or something like that, okay? I would bill it to them, and if they had a contact, I would actually do that later on because they might have more than one contact. See how it kind of goes into a one-to-many? I would recommend that. That would be a best practice. Okay, so what's her address? We're just kind of popping through here really quick. She lives in Utah. Boy, I can remember that one, huh?
And the only reason you would use a county is if you had a county tax, but that's
Okay,
flattening the county tax.
Great. The county, where this really gets specific, our background, we came from selling big ticket items. Well, guess what? Counties love to tax and license big ticket items.
Okay.
So it's technically it's there. It doesn't have an asterisk. You don't have to fill it out. But if you wanted to, the more information you add, the more you actually have later on if you wanted to search it. But when you actually go to sell big ticket items, often they will be like, what county are you from and where are you licensing it? It kind of gets clear back to that level.
Okay.
So I'm popping through here. You can enter as much or as little information. The more you enter, the better off you're actually going to be, okay? I'm just going to kind of put in a fake phone number here real quick for her, but say you actually knew it. You could be walking through this right with her. What's her email? info@Adilas.biz. You can enter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons and tons of different fields that you could actually record for her if you wanted to. You can even put her gender in there. You can put any sort of notes. Say she has red hair, if you wanted to. That eventually becomes searchable later on, okay? And we're going to say add the customer. Well, it automatically remembered that I was working with time, okay? So now I'm on element of time 107. I now have a rental of Ford. It's what I captioned it. It's currently under a customer time clock. Technically, I would probably call it a rental type thing. And it now should show up on my calendar all the way across in the span. So we're going to go to, just for, you can go multiple different ways. If I go elements of time homepage or monthly calendar, weekly, daily, whatever I wanted. If I click on monthly calendar, I should now have something that is actually spanning across tons and tons of time, and it ends up ending right here on the end of the day, okay? And depending on how you want to see it or what you're actually looking at, but you're actually started, we spanned that element of time had way more than just a single date, okay? So all of a sudden, that's why it shows up on everything else. It's like, what else is happening on that? Does that make sense, why that would show there? Because if we actually went to it, what it's basically saying is from 3:1 to 3:31, from 9 to 9, you better show up the entire time, okay? But if I went actually to the, say, the time slot view for this date, it wouldn't show up until 9. And there's my starting. I'm going to expand it out just so you can kind of see it for fun. Let's say that we actually had this going from 7, and I said search. It wouldn't start until 9 o'clock. But then all of a sudden it's starting to run its course because we told it that that's how long it's actually going to be in there. If we had another one that was like a smaller one, for fun, let's just say somebody needed it for a couple hours. Same thing, okay? We're going to just pop through it. We'll assign this one to Mikkel as well just because she's fast and it's quick, and we'll just do it. Just for fun, and we're going to actually, this one's a known period. We're going to actually do this one for 2 hours. We're going to let it auto-calculate it. I'm not going to do any of this other pieces for right now, but I am going to say I want to search more again. Okay, go get it. Pulls me out, and I say, oh, here's Mikkel. She's already in there. Assign it to time. Done. Okay, so now we have a new ID. We have the new title, and if I check on the daily time slot now, so what's happening now, so I'm going to expand it out again so we can kind of see some stuff. And if these settings bother you, you can actually control them on the corp level so that it automatically does exactly what you wanted. So at 9 o'clock, we just have one thing that's going on, okay? All of a sudden at 11 o'clock, we have something that starts. And it actually ends at 1. So this 108, it goes all the way through. Watch this. If I wanted to change the color really quick on this, just to kind of give you an idea so that it'll make a little bit more sense, if I actually go to that daily time slot now, you can actually see where the pink one comes in. That's actually the 108, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can technically book anything that you wanted in there, and it'll span that time for you. Okay, so we just basically did that. We haven't invoiced her. We did it. Do you want to invoice Mikkel for that time?
Sure.
Okay. So perfectly, what we're going to do is we can do it from one of a couple ways. We can either be right from here. We can say add the time to the cart, so I'm physically on the one that I just created, or there's actually other little pieces where I can come what's called a group report. We technically have two elements of time. Only one of them currently is in it needs to be invoiced. Like there's lots of different ways you can get at it, but basically you get to it to the point where you're like, okay, cool, let's do this, and we're gonna, yep, that's the one. Add it. So basically, it pulls it into the element of time. It says Mikkel. Here's her time right here, and it says, hey, here's your 500. You have 30 days, $500. It brings a bunch of information into you. It currently, if I were to try to check out right now, it won't let me. Even though I brought the element of time in, I don't have a line item. Okay, so the invoice has to have a line item because that's how it keeps track of taxes and all this kind of stuff. So what happens here, and this might be a good chance to say it, but at some points in Adilas, what we do is we build to a certain point, and then we're like, oh, I have to defer to this because it has more information. Well, Elements of Time has no tax settings. It has no other math this times this, or, you know, like say I was adding other pieces. So at certain places, I'll get to a certain place, and now I have to let you take over. So all I'd have to do is just add a little line item. Here's my information. I have 30 days for $500. So really simply, I'm just going to kind of plug it in. I'm just going to go like this, 1 at $500, and I'm going to put it under part number other, and I'm just going to kind of really rental for 30 days. And I just say add it to cart. So now I have Mikkel as my customer. I have my information. I have one line item, and I have an element of time that's attached to it. Okay? At this point, I can now check out. So we'll go ahead and hit checkout. And how is she paying for this?
Credit card.
Okay, perfect. So basically, credit card, you can click on this, and it'll take you right to a payment page. This is the Visa MasterCard logo. You have to have a merchant account set up with us. So if you don't have one, your logo is going to look different. It won't say, go to payment page. It'll be like, hey, we can do this type of thing for you. And if you don't, say you had a standalone terminal, and then you also had so you had your own credit card thing, but you wanted to record it in Adilas, you could totally swipe it and run it and do it like this. It could be this easy. Watch this. Click, Visa, you just ran it, and it gave you an authorization code. It could be that easy, okay? You don't even have to go to the specific payment page, okay? And you could create invoice. How would you like me to do it? You want me to run it, force it through, run it real, or how would you like to see it?
Don't care. Pick one.
Okay, we'll just force this one through, okay? I've already got it prepped. So basically what I did was I said amount, the type, and then I put the approval code. If you're doing it, if I left this blank right here, and I do have merchant processing set up, it automatically would take me to this page. Okay, let's get some information. Like it needs some information, if that makes sense, okay? Mm-hmm. If I'm back here and I just do actually enter approval code, it basically, and I say create the invoice, this little piece says, oh, I did it hard-coded. I don't actually need to prompt for that information. And it goes straight through. Does that make sense, how the difference between those two things? Each piece of the puzzle like has a help file, and I know you bounce through so many pages, you're like, what in the world? We're trying to get it more and more tight so that we can help teach you what actually happens. But basically at this point, we now have an invoice. I can save it as a PDF. I can have her sign and date and whatever. It's now actually created its life cycle. I have the element of time, I have the customer, and I have an invoice, and I've combined all three of those pieces together, and now they're running their separate journeys, okay? Element of time resides on the calendar. The customer resides here, and I now have a history that Mikkel purchased something, okay? Watch this. If I click here under more options and I go to the customer log for Mikkel, and I say all invoices year to date, there it is, $500. invoice 102, okay? It automatically is attached. If I go right here, I'm still on the customer log, and I actually clicked on her history. So watch right here for just a second. So I'm on the customer log, and I click on customer history. For Mikkel, it'll actually tell me exactly what has happened. I created her. I added an element of time. I added another element of time. I then invoiced. Like, it's basically walking through, telling me step by step who did it and what exactly is happening. So we're collecting a bunch of different pieces. The invoice that we just created, guess what? If I were to come right here and I click on invoices, guess what I would see? Mikkel Moore, $500. What is that? I wonder. I could either click edit or printable. Oh, rental, 30 days. Oh, tied to this element of time. I could bounce anywhere I want to go because that's how it starts kind of tying itself together. If that makes sense.